Hello, this is Dr. Larry Roth, Vice President of Nutrition at Agrarian Solutions. And today I'd like to talk to you about the next generation transition cow bolus, which we call Cow Start Complete. The current thinking on transition cows is that inflammation is the major source of health issues and what restricts cows in producing milk and getting pregnant and staying pregnant. I like this chart, which came from Horst et al. 2021. It lists that sources of inflammation, mastitis, metritis, and leaky gut are the major sources of inflammation with transition cows. I would also like to add sources of inflammation such as mycotoxins, lameness, heat stress, and a few others. But the point of this chart is that inflammation, the normal process whereby the body repairs itself, is what leads to impaired reproduction, fatty liver, eventually resulting in ketosis, and depresses intake. If we think about it, when we're going through inflammation ourselves and don't feel well, we tend not to eat as much. The challenge with inflammation is not only is the consumption of nutrients reduced, but nutrients are reallocated from productive purposes such as growth, milk production, and reproduction to simply repairing the body. Another thought with transition cows is the role of hypocalcemia. Increasingly, we're seeing that low blood calcium is a result of unresolved inflammation. And Horst et al. Puts hypocalcemia, low blood calcium, to the side. So I tend to subscribe to this thought. And when we put the Cow Start Complete bolus together to help with transition cows, this was what we had in mind. Inflammation is the major problem, and we have to help cows resolve it so that they can stay in the herd and reach their genetic potential. This is results of an interesting study by McCart and Etzel in 2023, in which they looked at a large number of cows based upon blood calcium at either 24 hours after calving or approximately 4 days after calving. And I believe that their results support the assertion that inflammation is the major stumbling block for transition cows. We see in the top two lines cows who had normal blood calcium all the way through. They had excellent intake, low disease incidence, and excellent reproduction. Those who started with a low blood calcium and then responded by restoring blood calcium to where it should be sailed along with excellent intake, low disease incidence, excellent milk production, and excellent reproduction, which goes along with that initial inflammation may sequester some of the blood calcium. But if we help the cow to resolve inflammation, she sails into lactation. The bottom two lines represent cows who did not resolve inflammation. Poor intake, high disease incidence, poor milk production, poor reproduction were the consequences. So, with Cow Start Complete, our objective is to help the newly freshened cow power through inflammation, rebuild her body so that she can live up to her genetic potential for milk production and reproduction. So let's introduce the Cow Start Complete. Cow, Cow Start Complete is composed of two boluses. So for cows who are second lactation and greater, we give two boluses at the time of calving. Note the tagline in the upper left, done once, done right. We only want to touch the cow once, give her both boluses when she calves, and then she's healthy, and takes off. That is our objective. Part of the secret to the Cow Start Complete is the red seaweed. Uh, and the red seaweed has over 30 years of research documenting the ability to improve immune function and resolve inflammation in both humans and in animals. I believe the real secret to the red seaweed is the 74 different minerals. I like to call these sea minerals. There are 72 trace minerals, and then the macro minerals, calcium and magnesium. The benefits of these sea minerals has been well documented in 8 published dairy cow studies. The red seaweed also has an ability as a slow release rumen buffer, and I believe that helps us with the Cow Start Complete. And then the major emphasis is here at the bottom. 7 papers in humans, 1 paper in transition cows, documenting the ability to resolve inflammation. So what makes up the Cow Start Complete Transition bolus? The sea minerals, 74 trace and macro minerals, but we also importantly have the antioxidant selenium yeast, the antioxidant vitamin E, and then the antioxidant vitamin D3, which also helps with calcium absorption and metabolism. The Cow Start Complete is a compressed bolus designed for slow release and breakdown over 48 hours. You can see on the left side of the slide that gradually the bolus breaks down from the outside to the inside. There are some preels inside there that are some of the larger seaweed particles and some calcium chloride that is included. Let's look at research results. This first study compared the Cow Start Complete to a bovacalc dose of 1 bovacalc at freshening and then another one 12 hours later. And you can see that with the slow release from the seaweed, we had higher blood calciums all of the way through with the Cow Start Complete. Part of this benefit for higher blood calcium is no doubt due to a better job of resolving inflammation. Let's look at the inflammation a little bit more here with a second study, which was done with a high yielding production herd. We selected cows out of a 5,000 cow herd working with only third lactation and greater. The cows were on a negative DCAD diet and had pretty good health all over. 70 cows were randomly allotted to a treatment designated as OC2, referring to oral calcium 2. You can see the average lactation 3.8, production above 30,000 pounds in the previous 305-day average. And these cows received 1 dose of the Reviva drink and 1 Bovacalc at calving, the standard program at this herd. The Cow Start Complete cows received 2 of the Cow Start Complete boluses at calving. Blood calcium levels did not differ between the 2 groups. So all of the benefits you're going to see from this point on are due to the Cow Start Complete helping to resolve inflammation. Note that across the board, Cow Start Complete cows had lower incidence of metabolic issues other than with ketosis. The minor advantage for the OC2 treatment was due to a pound of sugar in the Reviva drink. Otherwise, we see less incidence of health issues with cows who received 2 of the Cow Start Complete boluses at calving. Here's daily rumination levels, and note that there was a statistical advantage for the cow start complete cows to have more rumination minutes per hour or per day after calving. Not a tremendous difference, but a statistical difference. And I'm going to attribute this back to resolving inflammation and helping the cow start complete cows feel better. To further build on this difference in energy status, let's look at body condition score, which was measured with cameras. So the use of cameras takes out any human bias that might otherwise have been introduced. Note that there was a statistical difference in body condition score for favoring the 70 cows receiving the cow start complete as compared to the OC2 cows. Now, why would these cow start complete cows have better body condition score? Yes, the cows were probably eating a little bit more feed than the control cows. Notice with the rumination minutes. But if we're resolving inflammation, we have more nutrients available for productive purposes, such as getting back in a positive energy condition, because the nutrients aren't being allocated to repairing the body. So I think this is a second sign that the cow start complete is resolving calving related inflammation. Here is another sign: milk production. Note that we have a statistical improvement for milk production through the first 100 days. In fact, the cow start complete cows produce 5.3 pounds of milk a day more than the OC2 cows. We'll talk later about the economic advantage. This graph looks at number of cows pregnant by days in milk. Note the advantage for the cow start complete cows. Again, resolve inflammation. Nutrients are now allocated to helping the cows get pregnant and stay pregnant. Glucose is an important nutrient to be used by developing follicles. The glucose is used as a carbon source, not so much an energy source. So if glucose is not needed by the immune system, the glucose is then available to be used by the rapidly developing follicle cells. Note the chart on the right side of the slide, noting the percentage of cows pregnant by 100 days in milk. Only 56% of the control cows were pregnant by 100 days of milk, as compared to 75% of the cows who received 2 cow start complete boluses at calving. To further document the ability of cow start complete to resolve inflammation, let's look at this chart comparing some fertility characteristics. This 5,000 cow dairy had their own staff veterinarian, and at 9 days after calving, the veterinarian physically inspected the reproductive tract of each cow. Those cows whose reproductive tract was not healing appropriately would enter into an off-sync program. So note the first line on this table, in which the control OC2 cows, 26% had to enter the off-sync program, as opposed to only 5% of the cow start complete. This is an indication that the reproductive tracts were healthier for the cow start complete cows. Days to first service were similar between the two groups. A little bit of an advantage for cow start complete for days to conception, but look at the line for pregnant at first service. 14 percentage units more cows were pregnant at first service if they received cow start complete at calving. The cow start complete cows also had fewer services per conception. And then we also see the advantage for cow start complete cows pregnant at 100 days of milk, just like we saw on the previous slide. Then we look at the last line, percentage open at 200 days of milk, and fewer of the cow start complete cows had not got pregnant by 200 days in milk as compared to the control cows. This chart compares the cow start complete in the left column with some of the other products that are commonly given to transition cows. Note that the cow start complete, it provides magnesium, whereas other products don't. Look at the high level of vitamin D3 to help with calcium metabolism and absorption. Note that the cow start complete is the only product on this chart to have the important antioxidants selenium, yeast, and vitamin E to help resolve inflammation. Let's talk about return on investment. This study, comparing 70 cows on a control treatment with 70 cows receiving the cow start complete, showed a cow start complete advantage of 5.3 pounds a day through the first 100 days in milk. If we value the milk at $20, that's a $106 advantage for the cow start complete cows. The retail cost for 2 of the cow start complete boluses is $17 per cow. So you can note the notepad on the right side of the slide, which would show an $89 benefit for the cow start complete cows after paying for the boluses, and a very nice ROI of 5.2 per 1 to 1. Now, what is not included in this ROI is the better health, which we saw on a previous slide, fewer health treatments required. And also, there is not an advantage given to improved reproduction. A pregnancy is worth a tremendous amount, be it the high dollar beef on dairy calf at birth, be it fewer services, less semen expenses, less breeding costs, that fewer open days. And then also there's a lower labor cost with the cow start complete. Again, 2 boluses, done once, done right at calving. This slide was looking at third lactation cows. Let's talk about first calf heifers. If we start to think about it, it could be that these first calf heifers have more inflammation than mature cows. Quite often they have greater incidence of calving difficulty. They have never produced colostrum or milk before, as well as other challenges such as their first time exposure to a high energy diet. So this first trial was conducted at a 1,500 cow dairy, good performance at 27,000 pounds, but they had a challenge with persistent uterine infections in these first lactation cows. The vet would check each of these 1 week after calving if there was uterine infection. So there's increased handling and treatment, reduced fertility performance for economic costs. In this trial that utilized only first calving heifers, 29 received no bolus, whereas 19 received one of the cow start complete. Let me stop for a moment and emphasize, with mature cows, the cow start complete dose is 2 boluses at calving, whereas with the first lactation cows, it's just 1 bolus. This slide looks at metabolic issues, and we can see across the top here that the cows had good health, except for the controls with 10% having a uterine infection, and none of the cow start complete cows having uterine infections. When we look at fertility results, we see fewer days to first service for CowStart Complete, fewer days to conception, fewer services per conception. And when we looked at percentage of cows which were still open at 200 days in milk, there was a lower incidence for CowStart Complete. Let's look at a second trial, which was conducted at a 3,300 cow herd, 27,500 pound, 305-day average. And like the first herd, persistent uterine infection in these first calf heifers. At this herd, the vet would check every heifer 9 days after calving. So again, there would be increased health issues due to handling if we had uterine infections. This study utilized 111 control heifers that did not receive any bolus as compared to 91 first calf heifers that received one CowStart Complete bolus. This chart compares our results, and we see similar milk production between the two groups, but then when we come down to health issues, we see a lower incidence of mastitis, a much lower incidence of uterine infection, an improvement in rumination, and fewer of the first calf heifers had to enter the off-sync program because no heat was observed at 70 days in milk. So another study demonstrating that the CowStart Complete helps to resolve inflammation in these last two studies, resolving inflammation with first calf heifers. So how does CowStart Complete resolve inflammation? Sea minerals, the macro and trace minerals. Again, 74 different minerals. The important antioxidant selenium yeast, 500 IUs of vitamin E, vitamin D3, and importantly, the nutrients are available via slow-release compressed bolus, not all released, such as in a poured bolus. The research studies that were referenced in this presentation are available if you will contact me. The CowStart Complete is a central part of the Defend and Protect Dairy program from Agrarian Solutions. The entire agrarian program is built around the concept of resolving inflammation so that nutrients can be reallocated to profitable purposes rather than simply defending against pathogens and rebuilding the body. For more information on CowStart Complete or the Agrarian Defend and Protect Dairy Program, you're welcome to contact us at Agrarian Solutions or your Select Sires rep. Thank you.